Winfield Scott Hancock was a career U.S. Army officer who served with distinction as a Union Army general in the American Civil War, noted for his personal leadership at the Battle of Gettysburg in 1863. A military historian wrote, "No other Union general at Gettysburg dominated men by sheer force of their presence more completely than Hancock." Winfield Scott Hancock and his twin brother, Hilary Baker Hancock, was born in Montgomery Square, Pennsylvania, sons of Benjamin and Elizabeth Hancock. Winfield was named after Winfield Scott, a prominent general of the War of 1812 and later the Mexican-American War, and the commanding general of the United States Army at the start of the Civil War. Hancock would serve under Scott and become a general himself. He graduated from the U.S. Military Academy in 1844 and was commissioned a brevet second lieutenant in the 6th U.S. Infantry Regiment, with which he fought in the Mexican-American War under Scott. He was brevetted to first lieutenant for gallant and meritorious service in 1847. He was wounded in the knee during the battle. Hancock served in several assignments as an Army quartermaster and adjutant, mostly in St. Louis, Missouri. It was there that he met Elmira Russell, and they married on January 24, 1850. Allie gave birth to two children, Russell in 1850 and Ada in 1857. Both children died before their parents. Hancock served in Florida for the Third Seminole War during the partisan warfare of Bleeding Kansas and in the Utah Territory, where the 6th U.S. arrived after the so-called Mormon War. He was stationed in Southern California from 1855 until the Civil War broke out in 1861, serving as a captain and assistant quartermaster in the command of future Confederate General Albert Sidney Johnston. He made friends there with a number of other Southern officers, most significantly Lewis A. Armstead of Virginia. Armstead soon left to join the Confederate States Army. Hancock returned east to assume quartermaster duties for the rapidly growing Union Army, but was quickly promoted to brigadier general on September 23, 1861, and given an infantry brigade to command in the division of Brigadier General William F. Baldy Smith, Army of the Potomac. He earned his superb nickname in the Peninsula Campaign in 1862 by leading a critical attack on Fort Magruder in the Battle of Williamsburg. Army Commander Major General George B. McClellan telegraphed to Washington that Hancock was superb today, and the moniker stuck. However, McClellan did not follow through on Hancock's initiative, and Confederate forces were allowed to withdraw unmolested. In the Battle of Antietam, Hancock assumed command of the 1st Division, 2nd Corps, following the death of Major General Israel B. Richardson. He plugged holes in the Union line and maintained the integrity of his division despite heavy casualties in the horrific fighting at Bloody Lane. He was promoted to Major General of Volunteers on November 29, 1862. He led his division in the disastrous attack of Marye's Heights in the Battle of Fredericksburg the following month and was wounded in the abdomen. At the Battle of Chancellorsville, his division covered Major General Joseph Hooker's withdrawal, and Hancock was wounded again. His corps commander, Major General Darius N. Couch, transferred out of the Army in protest of actions Hooker took in the battle, and Hancock assumed command of 2nd Corps, which he would lead until shortly before the end of the war. Hancock's most famous service was as a new corps commander at the Battle of Gettysburg, July 1st to July 3rd, 1863. After Major General John F. Reynolds was killed early on July 1st, Major General George G. Meade, the new commander of the Army of the Potomac, sent Hancock ahead to take command of the units on the field and assess the situation. Hancock thus was in temporary command of the left wing of the Army, consisting of the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 6th Corps, which demonstrated Meade's high confidence in him. Because Hancock was not the most senior officer at Gettysburg at the time, Hancock and the more senior 6th Corps commander, Major General Oliver O. Howard, argued briefly about the command arrangement, but Hancock prevailed and he organized the Union defenses on Cemetery Hill as superior Confederate forces drove the 1st and the 6th Corps back through the town. He had the authority from Meade to withdraw the forces, so he was responsible for the decision to stand and fight at Gettysburg. Meade arrived just after midnight and took overall command. On July 2nd, Hancock's Second Corps was positioned on Cemetery Ridge, roughly in the center of the Union line, while Confederate General Robert E. Lee launched assaults on both ends of the line. On the Union left, General James Longstreet's assault smashed the Third Corps, and Hancock sent in his First Division under Brigadier General John C. Caldwell to reinforce the Union in the wheat field. As Lieutenant General A. P. Hill's corps continued the attack toward the Union center, Hancock rallied the defenses and rushed units to critical spots. In one famous incident, he sacrificed a regiment, the 1st Minnesota, by ordering it to advance and attack a Confederate brigade 4 times its size, causing it to suffer 87% casualties. But this heroic sacrifice bought time to organize a defensive line and saved the day for the Union Army. On July 3rd, Hancock continued in his position on Cemetery Ridge and thus bore the brunt of Pickett's charge. During the massive Confederate artillery bombardment that preceded the infantry assault, Hancock was prominent on horseback and reviewing and encouraging the troops. When one of his subordinates protested, General, the corps commander ought not risk his life that way. Hancock is said to have replied, "There are times when a corps commander's life does not count." During the infantry assault, his old friend, now Brigadier General Armistead, leading a brigade in Major General George Pickett's division, was wounded and died 2 days later. Hancock could not meet his old friend because he had just been wounded himself, a severe injury caused by a bullet striking the pommel of his saddle, entering his inner thigh, along with wood fragments and a large bent nail. Helped from his horse by aides, and with a tourniquet applied to staunch the bleeding, he removed the saddle nail himself, and, mistaking its source, remarked wryly, "They must be hard up for ammunition when they throw such shot as that." Despite his pain, Hancock refused evacuation to the rear until the battle was resolved. He had been an inspiration for his troops throughout the 3 day battle. Hancock later received the thanks of the U.S. Congress for his gallant, meritorious, and conspicuous share in that great and decisive victory. Hancock suffered from the effects of his Gettysburg wound for the rest of the war. He did recruiting over the winter and returned in the spring to field command of the Second Corps for Lieutenant General Ulysses S. Grant's 1864 overland campaign, but he never regained full mobility in his former youthful energy. Nevertheless, he performed well at the Battle of the Wilderness and commanded a critical breakthrough assault on Muleshoe at the Bloody Angle in the Battle of Spotsylvania Courthouse. His corps suffered enormous losses during a futile assault ordered by Grant at Cold Harbor. After Grant's army slipped past Lee's army to cross the James River, Hancock found himself in a position in which he might have ended the war. His corps arrived to support Baldy Smith's assault on the lightly held Petersburg defensive lines, but he deferred to Smith's advice, and no significant assaults were made before the Confederate lines were reinforced. One of the great opportunities of the war was lost. After his corps participated in the assaults of Deep Bottom, he was promoted to brigadier general in the regular army, effective August 12, 1864. Hancock's only significant military defeat occurred during the siege of Petersburg. His Second Corps moved south of the city along the Weldon Road, tearing up track. On August 25th, Confederate Major General Henry Heath attacked and overrun the faulty Union positions at Reams Station, shattering the Second Corps, capturing many prisoners. Despite a later victory at Hatcher's Run, the humiliation of Reams Station contributed to his decision to give up the field command in November, but his old wound from Gettysburg was also causing him distress. He left the Second Corps after a year in which he had suffered over 40,000 casualties, but had achieved significant military victories. His first assignment was to command the ceremonial 1st Veterans Corps. He performed more recruiting, commanded the Middle Department, and relieved Major General Philip Sheridan in command of forces in the now quiet Shenandoah Valley. He was promoted to brevet major general in the regular army for his services at Spotsylvania, effective 13 March 1865. After the war, Hancock continued to participate in significant events. He supervised the execution of Lincoln's assassination conspirators. He commanded the Department of the East, headquartered at Governor's Island, New York. During Reconstruction, as commander of the 5th Military District, encompassing Texas and Louisiana, Hancock drew much criticism from Grant and others for his inclination to be lenient to defeated Confederates. His General Order Number 40 on November 29, 1867, expressed sentiments in support of President Andrew Johnson's policies. If the residents of the district conducted themselves peacefully and the civilian officials performed their duties, then the military power should cease to lead and the civil administration resume its natural and rightful dominion. The order was published widely and was received with great appreciation in the South. In 1866, he also briefly led an unsuccessful expedition against Red Cloud in Colorado and Wyoming. Hancock received the votes of some convention delegates for the Democratic nomination for the U.S. President in 1868. He was eventually chosen as the Democratic opponent to James Garfield in the U.S. election of 1880. Although he received significant majorities in the Solid South, he was narrowly defeated in his attempt by about 7,000 votes of 9,000,000 cast. Hancock was elected president of the National Rifle Association in 1881, explaining that the object of the NRA is to increase the military strength of the country by making skill in the use of arms as prevalent as it was in the days of the Revolution. He was commander in chief of the Mullis Veterans Organization in 1879 until his death in 1886. He was the author of Reports of Major General W. S. Hancock upon Indian Affairs, which was published in 1867. His wife Elmira published Reminiscence of Winfield Scott Hancock in 1887. Hancock the Superb died at Governor's Island while commanding the military division of the Atlantic, the victim of an infected sore complicated by diabetes. He is buried in Montgomery Cemetery in Norristown, Pennsylvania. It's your history. Learn it, know it, love it.